The first.
And to review our mission. Our mission is to prepare and support all students within a culture of excellence to do their best and to be their best, so that each can be a successful contributing citizen, able to adapt to change and to successfully respond to the future. Is there anybody here for public participation? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to recognitions and acknowledgements. Congratulations to Kylie Thibodeau, who is the Optimist Club Student of the Month, who is a 6th grader at Elm Street School. And congratulations to Sherry Ann LaValle, who was honored at the Educate Maine ceremony for her National Board certification. And congratulations to the Minot School and staff for Senator Collins' visit, which was recognition for staff and the flag raising. And it was part of their November Mustang Pride Assembly. Senator Susan Collins visited, and the blue ribbon flag was added to the United States and the Maine flag. And thank you to the community club who provided t-shirts to students and to staff, which has the blue ribbon on the front and has the words "I can" on the back. And also thank you and recognition for Poland students who raised money for diabetes research. So thank you. Agenda adjustment. We're going to move our report of the student representative up to after the presentation, since they need to leave a bit early this evening. Student rep.
Do you want them to do it before? Presentation?
Do you want to leave before or after the presentation? Why don't we have them stay for the presentation? I think that would be good. So we are at the presentation, and we'll start with Sean in the middle school.
So I can hear.
Yes, just in front of the microphone.
Hi everybody, my name's Sean Vincent. I'm the principal at Whittier Middle School here in Poland, and I've been here in some capacity since 2004, so it's been a few years, and it's been exciting to watch the school grow. A lot of the information that I'll share tonight is very similar to what I shared last year, so I'm gonna move through a number of slides quickly, but there's a few key parts of the information I do want to make sure I take some time and just share with you what we're doing. Our student population is staying pretty steady. It's about 125 students per grade level. I think this year it's around 120 in the 7th grade and closer to 130 in the 8th grade. Average class size has come down a little bit, and part of that is due to the fact that we added Spanish this year at the middle school, which has been really exciting, and we've got a great teacher. It was kind of a strange start to the year. We were trying to hire him while we were going through the orientation process with teachers coming into the building. We weren't able to hire him until about a week into the school year, so we had to kind of disrupt the whole schedule plan that we had for the year to make it work. But I think it's a great fit. Very, very good teacher. His name's Peter Webster, and he's jumped right in with both feet and is a really good fit in the culture at Whittier. Very involved, very student focused. Taking a look at students with IEPs, that's students who receive special education services. We currently have about 20% of our population receive services, and free or reduced lunch. Right now, the number's at 38%. You may be aware that currently middle school students receive a free universal breakfast and a free universal lunch at this point. And I wonder if that has any impact on the number of families that fill out the paperwork for a free and reduced lunch. We put a big push on that every year, and we'll continue to do that. We've been asked to put a secondary push on that, and we certainly will, so that we can make sure that our numbers are correct. I wouldn't be surprised if the number actually is over 40%. As I mentioned, the only real change in our teaching staff this year is the addition of a Spanish teacher. Everything else is in place from last year. The big change last year, of course, was adding the full-time dean. RTI coordinator, and that made a really important change right from the beginning. Opportunity to respond to students' needs in a more timely manner, and to be more of a proactive, to play more of a proactive role rather than a reactive role with students and their behavior and academic needs. And we now have somebody who can really take the lead on that. Want to start by just showing you a little history on our numbers. You know, I hate to really peg a school by the numbers, but I think it's important, you know, just so you know, so we have a basis to work from. So this is the last few years as far as the MEA state test is concerned. You can see for the most part we kind of hover right around the state average. In recent years, you know, it kind of trickles up and down. And the reason why it does, you really are only looking at one group of students. So it's about 125 kids a year when they talk about adequate yearly progress, that AYP number. It's just reflects how that 8th grade class does, because they've had a full year of teaching in the middle school, 7th graders, and then they take a look at those 8th grade scores to determine if the school is doing what it should be doing for its students. Math, again, fairly similar to the state numbers, although you'll see in the 2013-14 we started to separate ourselves a little bit from the state, and I want to show you, I'm very proud of the numbers that we have this year, because once again we were able to again put more distance between ourselves and what the rest of the state is doing with math. And then writing, we talked about this ugly number last year. You can see the state, and again, very similar what Whittier Middle School is doing compared to the state in 2013-14. We tore that number apart last year, talked about how our boys were really not where we wanted them to be, and we're taking some steps as a school to try and at least give kids more opportunity to write, and to give ourselves an opportunity to see what are the real needs, you know, where are the problem areas in regards to writing. So this past year, they moved away from the test that we had been using to the Smarter Balance test in Maine. And as you can see here with reading, grade 7, 63% of our students met or exceeded the standard for reading, and you know that's a very positive number. When they rolled out that test, the Smarter Balance test, they talked a lot about, you know, you can expect in the first year to see numbers kind of hovering around 40% meeting or exceeding, and you know, a 63% well above, you know, the state percentage was a nice number to see. 8th grade not quite as favorable, but again, first year of that test, first and only year actually. And then our math results, this is what, you know, we're really pleased to see. Again, both grade 7 and grade 8 well above the state in their math results, and I don't think that you know that is reflecting any. I think it's very positive. I don't think there's anything that we missed other than what we did. We chose to do the math test before the reading test last year, just to see what kind of an impact that would have. You know, I think that there is some real issue around test perseverance and being able to sustain over these long tests, and you know, I think this really reflects what our kids are able to do. Although, you know, you're talking about half your students, right? So there's still a ways to go. This is one of the things that we did last year to try and and see where is our writing. We did a writing prompt, a full school writing prompt. And we did the writing prompt in the fall, and we did it in the spring. And if you're looking at these numbers, you're not seeing much separation. I think what we found is in year 1, we didn't do the writing prompt the way that we wanted to do it. We did an argument piece because middle school kids love to argue, and it's a great time to give them that opportunity to do that. And so we did this writing prompt. But what we did, we put a prompt out there, and we asked them to kind of draw from prior knowledge. And of course, when you do that, kids are coming from all over the map, you know, whatever their prior knowledge is around a topic. And we didn't like our rubric a lot. In the end, it just felt like it just had too many parts, and we really didn't get a great sense on where were the areas that kids struggled. And we didn't really, in this data, we didn't get to see much growth. So this year, we made a couple of changes. When we gave kids a writing prompt this year, again, we stuck with argument writing, but we gave them 3 pieces of media to work from. So they had 2 articles, one from each side, and we also gave them a video as well so that they could have some background knowledge to work from. And that's really a good piece of writing. They should be drawing from media, from the research or resources that they have. So we gave them that opportunity. We're going to go through the process again this year. We've changed our rubric, and we're going to again take another look and see if we can find the areas that we really need to focus on, and also measure growth over the course of the year. The topic this year is actually bottled water, so we felt like that was a pretty local topic, and it'd be interesting to see what kids do with that. But we did the test in the fall. We'll do it again in the spring, and it's important. Writing is important. We want to make sure that we continue to focus on that. Another test that we use in our school is the NWEA test. It's a computerized test that our district invests some money in, and we use this test because it's important to have multiple points of data when you're making decisions around students. And when we were looking at students, when we came into the school year this year, I really wanted to put our kids back in front of our teachers and say, these are the kids that we're working with this year. And that's what I was able to do with some of this data. We showed, in the math, the previous spring of 14 to the math, the spring of 2015, you can see the number that I guess I would point to is that bottom row where it just shows growth, the first column to the second column, the third column to the fourth column. And those numbers don't mean too much to you, so I'm going to take this to another level here. What you're looking to do with NWEA is it's supposed to show growth over time. And you can see that the observed growth, what we saw in each student was they averaged about 7.3 for math and a 4.1 for reading. Projected growth, what this test does is it gives you growth targets, what kids should be, where kids should go. And the projected growth for those same students was 4 points in math and 3 points in reading. So you can see that we overall, on average, we're ahead of what was set by NWEA. In the percentage who met the growth target, 78% of students met the math goal, where 59% of our students met the reading goal. Don't want to spend too much time on this, especially because it's little and it's going to hurt your eyes, but if you take a look at the charts down at the bottom, the graphs, the little orange diamond that's there, that's the growth target that was set with this test. And you can see with our 7th graders, they right on target, right where they should be. Our 8th graders far exceeded what the hope was. And again, this is in math, in terms of math. So it matches really well with the state test and then the results that I showed you with that. One of the interesting pieces, that top bar up in the far right-hand corner, it says school conditional growth percentile. And you can see that our 8th graders, which is the bottom, maybe you can or you can't see, take my word for it, that we are in the 99th percentile in terms of our 8th graders meeting their growth targets for the math test. And then as far as the reading, it looks a lot worse. You look at those orange diamonds and you look at the bar underneath it, but take a look, you can see on the y-axis going up the left-hand side, the RIT growth, you can see 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, whereas on that previous chart, much different. So, it looks a lot worse than it is, but we're not exactly where we wanted to be. 7th graders did not meet their target overall. 8th graders were closer to meeting their target, but not quite there. So, when we do these tests, when we invest our money and our time into doing this testing in our school, I think a key to that is, what are we doing with that data? It's nice to be able to look at it and reflect on it and talk about full groups, but it's also really important to look at the individuals and what are they doing with these tests? What do we learn? This is a process that we just went through with our teachers, and specifically our math teachers and our English language arts teachers, and these are fake names, but I just wanted to show you for the process. When we go through a test like this, they group the students for us in terms of where they fall, okay? And they give us a growth target. Okay, all 8th graders should be at this point at this time. And that's kind of the normative data on that test. And then 68% of your students should fall within 15 points below or 15 points above, whatever that magic number is. What we do is we take a look, and you can imagine that the normative target was probably the 221 to 230 in that range. I think it's like 226. And but what we do is we start looking back. Okay, look at BB back there in 181 to 190. What is BB getting right now to help her, him? I don't know what BB is. I'm not sure. That's an interesting name. What is BB getting to get up to where he or she should be at this point in her school career? Are they getting special education services? Are they getting a response to intervention services? Are they, and in terms of RTI, are they getting some after-school support? Are they getting support during the day? So we look at it, something like BB. Okay, BB's getting special education services. They're a couple of years behind grade level, but they're getting what they need at this time. So then we move on to that next group, Jamie and Susie. All right, what are Jamie and Susie getting at this time? Is Jamie involved in the after-school Excel program currently that we're offering? Is she getting the intense intervention during the day? And we go student by student to make sure that they're getting the support that they need. After that, the next thing that we do is we look at, let's look at 211 to 220. And right at the bottom of that group, you have Timothy, Vania, and Shirlene. And we take a look at them and say, what do these 3 kids need to bump up to that next level? What can we provide? Because our goal is to make sure that kids don't just stay where they are, but that they continue to grow, they meet the targets, and that they also maintain. That they're also continuing to perform at the level that they have been performing at. And we also take a look at that top level. What can we do to extend the learning for these guys? What challenges can we provide? But we went through this process with math, with English language arts, and then the next step is, even within math, there's subcategories, geometry and algebra and numbers, and we went through that process with those as well, just to see, okay, for a kid like Jamie, is Jamie excelling in one area, and maybe there's something that's getting in the way in terms of geometry or something else. And then the next step after that is we have a learning continuum, and what that does is it breaks down each scoring category by, these are the skills that this kid should have mastered by this time. And teachers can almost use that as a checklist to go down and take a look, okay, what's missing for this individual student? And we have never gone through this process to this same level as we have this year. And I think so much of that is we're finally really getting our ducks in a row. And I'm excited about how we're moving forward and the energy that's behind it with our teachers. We have to keep coming back to it because there's a lot of stuff that can get in the way. But I think taking the time and helping teachers to see the importance and the power of it can go a long way. Now, this doesn't stand by itself, but, for a kid like Eleanor up there, all right, Eleanor is at a 201, 210. This does not, a teacher might say, this does not seem to match what I'm seeing in class. So then we can go back and look at her scores from the previous year. We can look at her scores on the state test. We can look at, a variety of different pieces to see, why this kid is where they are, and is that classroom teacher missing something? Maybe Eleanor is performing at a very high level just because she's a hard worker, but there's some gaps that we've just missed along the way. So that's just part of the process. I felt like it was important to share this just so you know what we're doing with our kids. This is a priority for us.
Sean, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So the higher level, you said that you're looking to see how you can challenge them more, and I get that. But have you thought about looking at them and just sort of looking at a little deeper on why are they achieving higher? Is it just that they're inherently just naturally brighter, or do they have just better study habits? Do they get some extra support? I'm just kind of wondering, thinking about modeling, those that are kind of excelling, thinking about what do they do that makes it sort of different that maybe those that aren't excelling can model after. And it might be having something to do with their study habits or the support they're getting or those kind of things. I mean, some are just maybe naturally more brilliant, but there may be other reasons too. Just something to think about.
Yeah. Question.
Yes, go ahead.
The ones that's really excelling in math, how are they doing in the other 2 or 3 categories?
It's pretty consistent that kids who are doing really well in math are also doing well in reading.
Because I was a genius in math going through school. I've lost it all now. The rest of them subjects you might as well forget about. But I excelled in math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are definitely some students who do kind of separate. You do see their scores separate, but a lot of them are fairly consistent. And I think so much of it has to do with how much literacy is involved in doing some of the math, at times. But we do look for those, kids, and this does give us a chance to see some separation when they're grouped like this.
Usually, someone's stronger in one area than they are the other.
Right. Well, and sometimes it's interests too,
Yeah.
and it has a lot to do with it.
Oh, I knew numbers was money, so I was interested.
Last year, these were our areas of focus as a school, and I put red check marks next to them because it helps me feel good. But but really, what these things these are ongoing, right? So the first bullet there, establishing a clear and essential curriculum. That's something that our curriculum committee was committed to last year, and in some cases, they really had to push teachers because teachers want to include all these different learning targets. And what we did is we really forced teachers. Okay, is there a way to really shake this thing out? What is it that every seventh grader needs to leave seventh grade with? And you've got to let go of some different pieces, because if everything's important, nothing's important. You really have to settle on what are the keys. And so we shook them out, and we need to keep shaking because there's still, I think, probably too many essential standards per subject area, and we need to make it achievable and reasonable, not only for the teachers but also for the students. But huge steps forward last year. Building our response to intervention system. I think we're in a much better place. We've really developed a pretty neat system that we are implementing during the day. Right before lunch, we have what's called a flex block, and we're using that. I put that in my reports a couple of times, so I don't want to go too far into that. But our first 6 weeks was a big focus on math. Our second 6 weeks has been a real focus on literacy. Our next is on research, and what we've done is we've kind of taken a look again at who are those kids who have the most need at this time. Can we fill some of those gaps with an intense intervention? Maybe 6 to 10 kids with 2 of our best math teachers for that time to try to fill those gaps. And because we have some flexible grouping during that time, it allows us to make that happen. Probably not over the full course of the year. We need to make sure other kids are able to access those same teachers. But it really did seem to fill some gaps and also build some confidence for those kids. On top of that, we have an after-school program. We also offer an intervention around work completion on Saturdays once a month. We are doing a number of different pieces just to try and find, how can we take care of those needs. Integrating technology in a meaningful way. The iPad was really new to us just a couple of years ago. This year, that group is focused more on, we're going to open up jump rope in the middle school, which I know high school people are familiar with, but it's an opportunity to open our grade book up to parents and kids and hopefully give students more ownership of what they're doing in the classroom. And I think our goal there is to build responsibility for those students. Connecting with students and engaging them and growing as citizens and leaders, that's ongoing, of course. Providing opportunities for students and staff to be active and aware of healthy life choices. That with the roundtable is a real combined effort. But those were areas of focus last year, and those things are ongoing. This year, and a lot of that work is done through committees. Our full staff, it's only about 22 full-time teachers. And what we've done is, rather than have the whole staff get together in a faculty meeting and deal with, all right, how are we going to handle response to intervention? How are we going to handle this curriculum? You don't get anywhere. Even with all of that extra time on Wednesdays, the time goes, it's gone, and you don't get anywhere. So what we did last year is very similar to what the school board does with your committees that meet on the opposite Mondays. And we have a team that works on response to intervention. We have a team that works on curriculum, a team that works on roundtable, a team that works on technology. And that teacher leadership, they bring that back to staff, and that's how we were able to make so much progress last year. It was exciting. It's nice not to get bogged down and be able to move forward. But our goals for this year, we kind of created 3 umbrellas where all the work really needs to fit under these umbrellas this year. One, of course, we're working to support all learners. That's part of our strategic goal as a district. And, you know, we're doing that with RTI. We're doing that with, you know, the data work that we're doing as a school, not only around academics, but also around behavior. And behavior's good. For middle school kids, we have nice kids, super nice kids at the middle school, really good group of kids. We'll be transparent in the practice of teaching and learning. You know, that part is around the commitment to jump rope, to getting that grade book open, but also with our essential standards, making sure that kids know what they're shooting for. Every teacher is expected to have their learning goals on the board every day when kids come into the classroom. Kids should come in, they should see the learning goals, they should see the agenda for the day, they should see their homework for the day, and they should have a sit and begin, because we don't want any lost minutes. As soon as a student walks into the classroom, there's instructions on the board for the first thing that they should be doing as they enter the classroom. And that's an agreement that we have as a staff. And I'd say we fly about 95% on that all the time. It's very good. And then the third goal this year is just recognizing, identifying, and developing our personal leadership styles. And this is more about staff. I mean, it's certainly also about our students. We want to develop leaders amongst the kids. But, you know, I expect our teachers to grow, to take on leadership, to share the workload. And I think they're doing a fantastic job with that at this point. And it's making my job very, very doable because of their hard work. So that's my presentation. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Rick is up next.
On airplay.
Gotta be the library.
Zero, 1, 3, 2.
Okay. Let's open this up. Uh-oh. Okay. My screen looks different than yours. All right. So PCS, State of the Schools. I'm Rick Benoit. I think everybody knows me. But so just trying to give you an opportunity to see. So the goals of this presentation provide you with the overview of our student achievement and behavior data, and then give you an idea of what we've done and then those next steps. So in general terms, PCS, we have 477 students right now, a total of 71 people working in the building. That includes, you know, custodial staff, food service, so 39 and a half teachers. We only have a half-time, and 17 and a half ed techs, and 1 full-time school counselor. We are 50% free and reduced lunch right now. We have 9 new staff this year, 5 of them teachers. Our PTA is really actively involved in supporting our school. And if you didn't happen by the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, we had 500 guests in our building for Grandparents' Day. So that's always a really big day for us. So looking at our goals for this year, so our first goal is really to further develop a comprehensive PBIS system. So that's your positive behavior intervention systems. And that goes with a strategic plan of supporting our at-risk subgroups. It's really important that, you know, our kids, right, they've got to behave before they can learn. And so finding those ways to help them is really important. So secondly, continue to use data to identify student needs and provide interventions, including our school-wide win time. That what I need, it's similar to Sean's flex block. So it's a half an hour a day, 5 days a week that we provide interventions for our students. The process to this point has been very similar to Sean's, that we do about 6 to 8 week blocks of a particular content area. We are making a move. We're going to start in our last session in the spring. We are really going to target doing exactly what all of those students need, which means instead of doing writing all at once, one teacher may be doing writing, one may be doing math, one may be doing reading, one may be doing research skills, so we're going to divide it up that way. And then our last goal is to increase our community engagement through the sharing of information and community building events. We're actually trying to add in a couple more community events that we want to engage more people in. Our Heart Healthy Day has involved grades 3 and 4 in the past. We're making that school-wide. And then we're also trying to build kind of a community give-back day in the spring. We're hoping that that's going to be right around Earth Day. So that's in progress. Really quickly, this is old data, but I want to do the historical piece. So looking at our scores on NECAP, our literacy and math achievement, you can see that we had made a lot of growth compared on the NECAPs, and our percentage of students who were meeting or exceeding the grade level expectations, and we were slightly above in literacy and about 4 points above in math. Looking at our subgroups, so male, female, economically disadvantaged, and then students with disabilities, the reds on the left are below state average. So again, this was the 13-14 NECAP. So we had several groups. There are 4 categories there where our percentage was lower than the state. Similar with the math. So this is our achievement versus the state achievement, and you can see that in here we had 2 groups that were below the state average in those areas. So we put in place, starting last year and continuing into this year, we've put in some academic interventions. To further improve the achievement, we've instituted the win time, which was 4-minute, 30-minute blocks, which we've upgraded to 5 30-minute blocks a week. We now have monthly data and supervision meetings. So those are opportunities, one, so we can look at our student data and see where are our students and what interventions might be needed. The supervision piece of that is really, we ask our teachers to bring in a problem. So little Ricky isn't doing as well in math as we would like him to do. So what are we doing for him in terms of interventions, and why is he not making the growth we'd like to see? So it's an opportunity for the teachers to bounce those ideas off other teachers, off our title specialists. I'm in all of those meetings, so we have those every month to look at our students. And then our school-wide work on PBIS, which obviously has an impact, again, on your student learning. 2 things, so that's what we're doing in the school. There are a couple things that you have done as a board. You added a couple of years ago now, we have an additional 5th grade teacher, so we have 4 teachers in the 5th grade, and actually 4 teachers in the 1st grade. Most of our other classes have 3. That is because those are larger population classes, and we want to bring those numbers down. One other really interesting thing, and I want to make sure you guys know this, that 5th grade group, okay? So as 3rd graders, when they were big, it was 25 kids to a class. 57% of our kids met standard for literacy, compared to 68% at the state level. So we were 11 points behind. Last year, as 4th graders, 41% of our students in 4th grade made the standard, compared to 47%. We've halved that gap in a year. That's huge. The fact that we have half as many kids that are below that state average now. And that is what that class size has done for us. And so we're really, want to make sure that we note that additional 1st grade teacher, right? I mean, there's stuff besides class size, obviously, that also makes a difference, but it's made a huge difference for us. And so that's that preventive piece for our 1st grade, is that we have that additional teacher now, so we have that opportunity. So current data, 2015 on the MEAs. So this is our achievement. So our whole school in literacy, 54% versus 48% for the state. So we've made a bigger gain in that area. Our math achievement, that 4-point gap remained the same. But we invested a lot more into our literacy than we had in our math last year. Subgroups. Here's our literacy subgroups. There were 4 that were below the state, right? Below state numbers. We're down to 1. And it's only 1 point behind. When you talk about students with disabilities, right, it's a smaller population. 2 kids, 1 kid could be your 1%. So 1 kid could be 10% depending on your numbers. So that's a huge gain for us. So we feel like, obviously, we're feeling like we're on the right track there. And then here's our math data. We had 2, we still have 2. One of them has shifted. It's interesting because really what it is, there's a bigger gap between our males and females on math, but our males are really knocked it out of the park. When we look at our math achievement, compared to the state, only 39%, they're way above. Our females are pretty close to that. So, but that's something that we've got to look at and talk about as a staff. You know, why are we seeing those numbers? And we've already started that process. The other thing that's really weird for me, and for you guys to understand, on our kneecaps and on the MEA test, our students who are not socioeconomically disadvantaged, so that's really identified. Socioeconomic disadvantage is your free and reduced lunch population. Our kids that are not free and reduced lunch are still below state average. They were on kneecaps and they are now. And that's just really odd. That isn't supposed to happen. It's your socioeconomic ones that are supposed to, right, are supposed to struggle. We don't see as much of that struggle at our school. So it's just a really interesting thing that we've got to really try and dig deeper on. The one thing that I would say is that a lot of students, like students below standard, quite often get title services. If you don't know Brandy Como, who is our math titles teacher, she is an unbelievable math teacher. She has a master's in elementary math education, so she does an amazing job. That may be a piece of that, but we're not sure. But that's another interesting piece for us to look at. That was our academic. Anybody want me to keep right on rolling? All right. So behavioral data. So in 13-14, and this was something that we shared before. So we had a total of 233 office referrals, okay? 92 from the bus, you guys can read. So comparatively, part of the issue for us was looking at the time spent in these places. The bus by district policy is a maximum of 2 hours a day. Cafeteria time's only 30 minutes at lunch, 30 minutes on the playground for recess, and those were much larger numbers for us. Especially comparatively. So we were having more issues in those spaces. So what did we do about it? So we created a new office referral form with some specific interventions for teachers to use. We created a school-wide behavior matrix with common lessons that teachers used with our students, and we did staff development around positive behavior interventions. All of my teachers have a duty every day. We started that a couple of years ago. That's made a big difference for us as well. They don't love it, but they do it, and it's made a huge difference for us. Bus lessons started last year for us, and they've continued into this year. So we have the bus drivers on board. We're coordinating our efforts with them. It has made a big difference for us. And those continued lessons supporting the bus and the building behaviors. This year we've started a PBIS team in the school, so it's a group of teachers that meet, and we're looking at our school and how we do this. We're starting to collect some baseline data around how do we present, our behavior expectations in school, how are we positively supporting our students. And Kelly Marston, the assistant principal, and Lexi Trigiani, our school counselor, they're really spearheading that work for us, and they've done amazing work. As well, you guys, again, supported the district having a behavior specialist, and that really helps with not only with our most challenging behaviors, but also the ability for her to come in and look at a classroom and kind of analyze what's going on. Why might kids be getting triggered in this room? How can we tweak what we do? So here's our numbers from last year.
Wow.
Now, it does not mean that we've eliminated all the behaviors. What it means is that our approach is very different, right? So, and this one I actually, from Maggie Thornton, a couple years ago, shared this thought with me, and I still appreciate it. She talked about when our kids can't read, we teach them to read. When our kids can't do math, we teach them math. When our kids don't behave,
You gotta teach them the behavior.
we've got to teach them that behavior. And so often our response is, we've got to discipline them. They know better. Well, we're finding that that we've made huge gains in our school. And right, when the behavior's better, there's less attention to behavior, there's more attention to learning. And our kids are doing that. And then just wanted to throw out a few of the accommodations for our school. So our parent involvement is great at PCS, 95% participation at student-led conferences. I require anybody who volunteers in PCS to go through a volunteer training. Takes about an hour. So before they're going to come in our building and work with our kids or go on our field trips, they have to do a volunteer training so we can talk about what are our expectations in the school, what can volunteers do, what can't they do, how should they best be involved with our kids. 346 people have been through that. So that's a lot of people to donate a lot of time just to get through the doors. Our Giving Tree, we just had a donation that actually has happened for the last 3 years. One of our parents has donated $1,000 for our school to help those needy families in that Giving Tree in our lobby. We're down to about 10 tags right now. So, I put out an email to staff. We've got a few left, and they were almost all gone. So it's just amazing. Staff supports for our students, so our Panther Pride recognizing students every month. Our K-2 teachers eat in the classrooms with their students. That was a change we made this year. Again, teaching behaviors. So talking about cafeteria expectations. How do you behave when you sit down for a meal? So that was a big thing that we wanted to make sure that we went through with our kids. And so the teachers have really, bought into that. And supporting our other classes, Mrs. McFarland, our music teacher, I just had to, again, throw a shout out for her. So her experience was not as intense in the younger grades in K-2, and she struggled some of her behavior management last year. Not huge, but there was, that was where she struggled most. So starting the very beginning of this year, she goes into those K-2 classrooms on her planning periods. So she doesn't sit in her class and correct her papers, make her plans for the next class. She's in there reading books with kids. And again, that's that commitment for our staff to our kids. That's the kind of stuff we see a lot. And then our kids really make a difference. In the last 3 years, we've sent over 700 pounds of candy to troops serving overseas. We do Operation Gratitude every year. Our Life Skills program is integrated in everything we do. We run food drives, the whole diabetes fundraiser. I met with a group of 4th grade girls today who want to do something around Relay for Life, and they're not sure how they're going to make that work yet, but it's really a part of that, that culture of what we do. So on top of our academic stuff, we just have some awesome kids. So. And staff. I want to leave them out.
Any questions for Rick?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we'll get back to our agenda, and we'll have our report of student representatives.
Well, we are pretty busy, and SRB, the policy committee, is working on some policies around graduation. Miss Med submitted a proposal. She wanted us to formalize a process on what students can wear during graduation, like what stoles and like how they're awarded. I mean, like where they come from. Like they can't just wear any stole that they want. And then the other part of it was recognition for students who receive a distinguished on their senior celebration. We were working on what we could do to recognize students other than just putting a DS on their transcripts and then the student activities.
For student activities, we've been working to figure out what we want to do for the pep rally and stuff coming up for the Holiday Spirit Week, and we finalized the days that we're dressing up, and so it should be good.
Oh, and also the seniors went to their respective elementary schools last week and read to the kindergartners, and that was really cool. They really loved it.
Anybody have any questions for them? Comments?
I have to at least throw out, our kids loved it.
I
too.
bet they did.
It's an awesome time for them to come down and read with our kids. The kids really love having that. They really, sorry, I got to throw this out there. But I think it's the reality is that a lot of times the high school students forget, for the elementary kids, you are their heroes. You are their, when they go watch a basketball game, that's who they want to be like. They don't want to be like LeBron. They want to be like whoever is on the court here. So, I mean, it's awesome to have you guys come down and do that with our kids across the board. I'm sure all of us. Sorry.
And can I just say that also, Kim found a sponsor for the T-shirts that you guys handed out, so we didn't have to spend any money on that. Kim, do you just want to do a shout out to the company?
Yeah, Save, oh shoot.
Handling?
Save Approach in Mechanic Falls, right? They're out of Mechanic Falls. The name of the man, sorry.
Sorry, Kim, I
Roger Dargy, yes, Roger Dargy, from the Optimist Club. We were meeting with the Optimist Club, and this conversation some conversation came up, and a little light bulb went off, and I thought, maybe we can get a donation here. So, he very generously donated the entire cost of a T-shirt for every single kindergartner in the district, to promote the college need.
In the class of 2028, 2029.
I'll be 80.
Guys, counts and I like on our fingers. We triple counted so we wouldn't print it wrong.
Thank you, Libby. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. Moving on to act on our minutes, approve the regular meeting minutes of 11/9/15.
Make a motion to approve?
We have a second from Annette. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all those who in favor? Anyone opposed? That was unanimous. And acceptance of our financial report from November 2015.
Move to accept.
We have a second. Second from Ed. And we have a motion and a second. We have some updates you'd like to provide.
So there are no major changes from last month in our budget. There are a few things that I thought I would point out, a few questions that Mary Martin had. One of the questions Mary had was asking about our sublines, and we've watched those closely over the last few years and been adding to them to make them more in line with what current reality is. And the question, so we've had a lot of teachers out for childbirth, and then of course the 6 weeks to stay home with their children, and some have had extended leaves after that, which the board has approved without pay. And so one of the things you're going to notice is that our sublines, particularly our Bruce Whittier Middle School, are already overexpended, and we are very early in the school year. So certainly that's going to be something that we can't control. We will just have lines in the red there, but one of the things that does happen is once they get to the place where if they're extended leaves and they're not being paid, the teacher line will have a little bit of buffer money. That's not going to totally correct it because we, of course, have had quite a few out for their 6 weeks, and we are paying the teacher plus the sub. So always watching those lines, but again, that's the benefits that you receive with our district contract, and of course, we support our young families that are having children, so that's all good. The other place that you're going to see the sub lines being an issue are in special ed. So just want to remind everybody, we've had quite a few ed tech, and that's in ed techs particularly, quite a few ed tech positions that we haven't filled. When that happens, we fill them with substitutes. So we have, again, we will have some buffer money in the salary line because those positions are unfilled, and then you'll see it in the sub line. And one of the things that, for those of you who looked closely at the special ed sub lines, all the substitutes, if you went to page 22, all of the K-8 substitute salary lines are, if you look at the top of 23 actually, come out of the K-8 special education, like the regular special education lines, and we don't have sub salaries in the K-8 or in the K-8, the K-8 resource or the K-8 self-contained. And what Stacy said was there should be sublines in each of those cost centers because they're different cost centers. So you're seeing one of them being, they're all being billed out of that one line, and she's going to be making some corrections to that so that in the future there are, the sublines are in each section, and we can see, is it functional life skills where we're seeing that difference, then it's easier to see that the salary line balances it out or not. But that is the case with the special ed substitutes, particularly for the ed techs where we had open positions. One of the other questions that Mary asked was we had to replace a boiler in Minot Consolidated School. At Elm Street School, sorry about that. And she was asking where we were getting the funds for that. We did put that cost through the capital improvement lines. We always put a little bit extra in there so that in case of emergencies, this is one of those situations. Not exactly sure how much that boiler costs. John, do you have that figure? About $22,000. So again, can't necessarily predict when a boiler is going to go, and that's why we have the capital improvement lines there for that purpose, and that's where we paid it out of. And the only other thing that I thought I would share with you...
The other question I had was around special ed, and I remember the end of this year, the end of last year, that was an issue at the end of the year, is that tuition line was such that we had to freeze to make sure we had enough to cover it. And I was just thinking, at this point of the year, where are we in terms of that? Is that likely to happen again this year, or is that tuition line based on our placements going to be okay?
Yeah, Stacy didn't remember to talk to me about that. She had to leave. She was having a problem with her arm, and so she had to leave at the end of the day. I don't know if Holly knows how we're looking in that line.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. So we're, percentage-wise, we still have 65% of what we budgeted in there. There is at least one school that's a little bit behind in their billing, but we're looking okay. We have managed to bring a few students back, which is great. And we have a couple that are waiting to go out, but much like all the public schools who are struggling to find staff, the out-of-district placements are struggling to find staff, so they're not able to take some of our students on right now, so we're balancing that out. So I think we're going to be okay.
Okay, good.
And the only other things that, if you look, if you notice, we talked about the stipend lines. This runs through November. All the stipends were paid out, or if they're year-long stipends, they're paid out in December and June. So half of the year-long stipends are paid out, and then any of the ones that were, like the sports for fall, those are all paid out. So in the next round, you'll see the stipend lines looking significantly different. And for the board, we have our professional services line. It's got about $30,000 in there. That's still all there, but that pays for the audit, and that's completed. So that line will also be zero in the next month or so when we pay off the costs of the audit. So there's a few things like that they hit us all at once, and pretty much wipes out some lines that are looking pretty healthy now. If you're wondering why we've paid no stipends, that's why they just got paid out in December. So that's it for me, unless other people have questions.
Anybody have other questions? Okay, we have a,
Actually, did anybody have any questions about food service?
That's too hard of a subject for me.
Okay, so I didn't know, one of the things that Stacy had said, it's a little bit hard to understand the financials for food
Right.
service. So I can give you the bottom line that she talked to me about today. So if you look on page 2 of 2 for the food service, I think it must be right at the beginning of the whole. You'll see at the very top, the total expenditures for the reporting period, say 267,000. So those are our expenses. If you look down further, you can see the revenues are 122,000 in the same line. After it says total food service revenue, that's money that's been come in so far. We're still waiting on our October and our November subsidies. So that's not all of, what we've gotten in to date. We've still got some that are coming. Then we have summer school revenues. So you can see we brought in $147,000 this summer, and we spent out $118,000. If you take all of that into account, we're $17,000 in the red, so in debt, right now for this year. So again, that's quite a lot of money. It's about, I would say we're losing around $15,000 a month. And it is going to mean we're looking at our universal meals, and we're going to probably need to stop them at some point in the near future. Our process now is to make sure we get we have to do it the right way, because we've got to make sure the free and reduced lunch forms are in for those families that need it. The schools need some heads up because their schedule changes a bit if you're not feeding everybody. In how that works. So we are in a process of trying to figure out how we can kind of stabilize the expenditures with the revenues and food service. And it just, it's something that we're doing a lot of work on. Stacy's working really closely with us on that, and also John's been working closely with the staff on the menus and things like that.
I would think it would be also important to let families know in a timely way if they're currently, it's free and they're going to end up paying for it.
That's what that's why it will be several months, because that's what I meant by the free and reduced lunch rates. We got to notify parents. We have to make sure they understand the timeline, and we give them a chance to make sure if the paperwork's not in, that it's in, so we don't make a major hardship for our families. So again, it's one of those situations where the cost to feed the students has just gone up too much for us to keep absorbing, and we haven't planned for that.
So that's the issue, the cost of.
So that's part of the issue. So what's happening is we have in, say, like Bruce Whittier Middle School, 38% free and reduced lunch count, yet we're feeding everybody free. So we can't absorb the 60% that would normally be paying for their meals. And you're allowed to do that, according to the state numbers, if you've got 40%, which is why, Sean said he's wondering if they didn't get all their paperwork in, because they've certainly had 40% before. But the universal meals, the way that works is you've got to get enough free and reduced lunch to have that offset the rest. And so we tried that last year. It's kind of gone forward into this year because we're waiting for the auditor's report to see how much that was costing us, and we're realizing it's costing a lot more than we understood. So
was there theory that if you had 40% free lunch, that that reimbursement would cover all the rest of the kids?
that was the message that we received, yes.
So that's not correct.
Well, I think the messenger is kind of dumb.
Yeah, it's not working that way. So, there's a couple ways to think about this. When you have, there certainly are families and students who don't have enough money for food, and if kids are hungry, they're not going to be able to learn. So there is some, we pay for their education, and we don't have any problem, when we know kids have needs for food, that if the school is chipping in to help that, or if the state is through the free and reduced lunch rate. But there comes a point where we can't afford to absorb as much as we are, and that's about where we're at. So, I know we have a small committee that's been working on getting unpaid debts paid, and then we also have with having the addition of Stacy on board with being able to work with the state to try to, get this process down. It really makes a difference to have the additional staff. If we can get the costs, it's, like I said, with having somebody who's really knowledgeable in how the revenues and the expenditures work for food service, it's a complicated process. It's going to make a difference for us, and she's devoting quite a bit of time to that, and I feel like we will have some updates for you as we go forward in the next, probably next month, we'll know a little bit better about how we're going to go about getting the word out to everybody and restructuring that program, whether it's still go forward with breakfast but not lunch, or whether we need to make some changes with all of it.
And how many schools are getting free breakfast and lunch? Which schools again?
So we have Elm Street, we have Bruce Whittier, and we have PCS for breakfast. I know we have, Sean, did you say we have Bruce Whittier for lunch? PCS, are you getting lunch? No, I think it's just Bruce Whittier that gets lunch.
Elm Street does.
Oh, Elm Street does too. Okay, so we have 2 schools with universal lunch, and we have 3 schools with universal breakfast. Yeah, 3 schools with universal breakfast. So there'll be some changes forthcoming, and I know the financials are a little confusing, so I was anticipating that there might be some questions about how to read that document.
Any other questions or comments? So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the financial statement? Anybody opposed? That was unanimous. There's no old business. And you'll notice on the revised agenda, we do have some new business and approving a special ed teacher nomination.
Yes. We're very excited to announce that we have a teacher who is moving to the area that applied for our special ed position that's been open since last June, when you approved an additional special ed position for PCS and Minot. And we have had no qualified candidates to this point. We have an excellent candidate, so we're really excited about that. And she has a 60-day notice clause, so it may be 60 days before she starts, but I am going to talk to her superintendent to see if it can be shortened at all. And if the superintendent is anything like I am, he'll say no. Part of it depends on, and she said this, if they can fill a position sooner, they're happy to let them go, but special ed positions are hard to fill. And we need those staff members, so I certainly appreciate a no if I get one, because we've been there and had to deal with that with some of our special ed staff. But really excited about that, and I know PCS and Minot is going to be relieved to have that person on board as soon as possible.
It's nice to see somebody with some experience, too.
Yes. Been a special ed teacher in the, trying to remember, the Brewer and the Hamden area, and for a considerable number of years, and has very high quality comments from her, the letters of reference and the reference calls that we made.
So we have a motion to approve.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Steve and Jack. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That was unanimous. And we had talked last time about the date for our district budget meeting, and Tina's suggesting a change in that. Do you want to go over the reason?
So we made a recommendation in our last, the papers that I passed out that listed the dates that the budget meetings would be, and then when it would go to the voters. And we had listed May 19th. Thursday, May 19th, to go to the voters for our district budget meeting. And that's when the business managers tri-state conference is, and it's really important for Stacy to be there. It's a 3-day conference, and they cover a lot of the laws that are changing and all of the regulations and that kind of thing. So if we can't change it, or the board doesn't think that's a good idea, she certainly will be here and not go to the conference. But what our proposal is that we change it to Monday, May 23rd. So that she can attend her meeting and also be here on the 23rd for the budget votes. So,
and that still fits the guidelines in terms of the law and the number of days.
Still fits the timeline, and it's on a Monday night, but we didn't think that'd be an issue for people. It's not an issue for the board. So,
Somebody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Steve?
Second.
Second, Jack. Any more discussion?
So did we run that by the towns?
We haven't yet, because I wanted to know from the committee first if they would support that. What we did do is we looked to make sure it didn't conflict with other, like any meeting, anything going on here in the auditorium, and also whether the town had any meetings on those days. So we don't think it's going to, but we haven't brought it to them until I had approval from you to do that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That was unanimous. And to authorize the superintendent to enter into an agreement with Androscoggin Bank for the purchase of a van for student transportation, and there was some paperwork in the packet regarding that. And Tina, do you want to clarify any of that?
Pretty straightforward. It's a four-year lease, and it showed what the lease payments were on the second page. This is the van that we need because our special ed students are using the other vans, and it was essential. I think, trying to remember, we had a van that was broken, we were going to have to put a certain amount of money into it, and the decision that it really wasn't worth the additional, putting that much money into an old van when we knew we needed this. Remember, it was last year, it was on one of our priority lists, but we ended up cutting it out, saying we'll try to get through one more year with it.
And that money is in our current budget.
Yeah, we won't go over our current budget. Rather, so I think we had like a $2,500 cost to repair the old one.
Right.
And you can see it's going to cost $6,543. But what it will mean is we're not still having, from the repair line, having to keep repairing and run the risk of having to put more costs into the old one. So we feel like we can do it within budget.
So this is a lease, not a purchase?
Yes.
It's a lease purchase.
Oh, lease to purchase. Oh, $1 to, okay, got it. Sorry, I missed.
And who's the lucky dealer we're buying this from?
It says on here, Androscoggin,
No,
this is
that's the bank.
Do you know?
Portland, said Portland.
Yeah, I read
What should I? Okay. I'll make a motion, we apply it.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, no, I'm seconded.
Oh, no, I'm seconded. So we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That was unanimous. And the policies that are listed here, we went over last month, and we approved them as a first reading, so this would be a second and a final reading. And unless somebody has some discussion or concern, we could probably do them all in one vote, as we did approve them last month.
Make a motion that we have the second and final reading for policies GCSA, GCSA-R, JLF, JLF-E, and JLF-R.
I didn't get that, you want to repeat them?
So we have a motion, we have a second. A second by Ed. Any more discussion?
So those were, Tina, those were the ones that we gave you last week and last month, and everybody voted that they were in agreement of them.
Right.
But we didn't have a final vote and signature, so we needed to bring
right.
that through the
Okay,
last
got
time.
it.
Yeah,
Just
to sign.
because we need the signatures, basically.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, that is unanimous. So these will be coming around, and we can keep them going so we can get them back to the warrant. And A-team reports. In Sean's, one of the things that Sean talked about was recognizing Amy Hediger, who had served as middle school dean during Jess Madsen's absence. And I guess I would like to say that we certainly welcome Jess back. We would also like to thank Amy for, as Sean said, she did an outstanding job, and to me, it's the kind of teacher leadership and collaboration that we are certainly encouraging. So, thank Amy, and welcome Jess back. Julie?
For two of the schools, they have school-based PD or district-based PD. What is that?
So that's our
Professional
early,
development.
yeah, that's professional development, yes.
Thank you.
Those are our early release days, typically, sometimes a workshop day.
Okay.
And at the elementary level, they have, typically 2 a month would be building-based, and 2 a month would be district-based if we have 4 meetings in a month.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you for those reports. They continue to have lots of detail in them. And we've had our report of the student representative already. Subcommittees, only 2 subcommittees met. So operations, Aaron?
Sure. Just to give you kind of a high-level overview, John has been working very hard since he got on board with the team in the RSU in general, and setting up an emergency planning update. It's something in security and safety in all of our buildings and protocol. It's been pretty important to all of us. So John has sought out some of the other school districts in the area that have been working with the Androscoggin Sheriff's Department and getting some information from them about their managing their plans and how they manage them, because they've already obtained an approval status. So he's working on compiling some new information, some old information, and some current copies and old copies, and refining it and streamlining it. Hopefully a draft will be done January sometime. Hopefully, cross your fingers. He's working real hard on a bunch of things. And once that is compiled, Tina is going to be reporting that out to the towns, so that way the towns know exactly how we are handling our situations and what the protocol is. So if something were to happen at any of our schools, we can basically hand them a book, and this is our protocol of how we handle each situation, who's responsible for what. So it takes all the guesswork out of everything. The second item we talked about was the facilities review team met, and something that we've been discussing is the overcrowding at the middle school. That's an obvious topic for everybody. A lot of different people have been brought back to the situation. The committee has been brought back up to speed, and Rick Jones has given some recommendations about where we could use or have use for a new facility or modulars on the high school or middle school properties. We're currently looking at different bonds that are going to be retiring within the next 8 to 10 years about annual payments and how we might be able to afford it and what might be the best options for the district as a whole. And requests were sent out to different architects that the state recommended and other building projects have had throughout other school districts, and those are to be back on, what, this Friday?
I'm sorry.
The 16th? Yeah.
I didn't
That's
hear what
okay.
you were saying, sorry.
The proposals for the art Wednesday?
Oh, okay, yeah,
Okay.
John would know that, sorry.
So
I was looking
those-
at your minutes.
So those
Didn't hear the
proposals went
question.
out, and they should be back this week. And then the committee will meet the following week, just before Christmas, to discuss those, open them up, and see what we might be looking at for options and who's going to be able to meet our needs. And we should have that recommendation by the January meeting. So the one hot topic that we've just discussed with Tina is the food service, the amount of debt that we currently have and how we're collecting it and or not collecting it. Jack was kind enough to report out to us in his committee. They've really discussed the fact that there hasn't been much process implemented in the past of how to get money for, I don't want to say habitual offenders here, but people who continually are requiring meals but not paying for them, and how we're communicating that out to the parents if they're aware, or if we're being proactive versus reactive. So they're working on a few different ways to make the community and those individuals who owe money to have a little bit more proactive nature in getting it out here and not catching them behind the 8 ball. Good news is that in the past 4 years, it was reported out that no students have graduated with debt. They have to pay it off before they can graduate. So that process is is working, but we want to try to eliminate it getting even to the middle school and up higher, so that way.
Carrie's gonna.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that I sent home bills this, for farm reports. I had never seen some of the size bills that have come up, so I think this will be a new problem.
Yeah.
They're bills that I've never encountered, so whatever issue was happening at the elementary level, they're now at the high school. So while that may have been true in the past, given the size of them, I don't know if I can promise that.
Okay.
That will continue. Just so we're clear.
So again, just to kind of reiterate, the proactive nature. Yeah, Tina and the committee, we all discussed more of a proactive nature and utilizing some of the administrative team inside of the offices, the secretaries, to utilize their downtime a little bit better and getting a call out and making an actual contact rather than just relying on one blast, whether it be an email or those letters or anything. So we're trying to get the word out, but the committee is still working on different ways and methods to retain some of that money. Lastly, the two other items that we talked about was the bidding process and the surplus vehicles. As you can see on your notes, 2 of the school buses were bid on, but per John, speaking to the mechanics and the other directors with Tom, realized that the bids it just wasn't a realistic amount for us to turn over a piece of equipment. When our mechanics are capable of parting out those pieces and scrapping off the material, we can actually make more than what the bids were worth. So we've decided to decline those and let our mechanics do what we pay them to do and really utilize their talents and make some more money off of those than what we could have retained. The last item is something that's been ongoing too, is the advertising in schools. We're at the point right now where we're looking for guidelines for adopting a policy on what is acceptable recognition and what advertisement will be allowed and won't be allowed. And when we have some more input and more information, I'll get that out to you guys as soon as we can. That's basically about it.
I got a question. We're meeting this month?
No, there are no committee
January
meetings.
11th will be the next meeting
Okay.
where we get the bids for the build out and the architecture.
I didn't think we was meeting.
No, the building committee is meeting on the 21st.
Yeah, next Monday.
Yeah, not us.
Okay.
No, you're good. You slip in.
Okay, and Jack on the Educational Policy Committee?
We had 3 items. Melanie gave us an overview of the process the staff are going to be using to evaluate the new math products for students. She's done a lot of work establishing criteria for the teachers to use as an evaluation tool. The evaluation will be done over the course of December and January with information on selection likely to come to the board sometime in February. We brainstormed some ideas for information to be included in the new adult ed flyer, the RSU 16 flyer. We wanted to highlight some information about the schools, in particular to community members who don't have children in the schools. Suggestions included student numbers, graduation rates, college enrollment numbers, steady enrollment numbers, RSU 16 stats, performance, and possibly quotes from kids on some of the topics. Lastly, Tina discussed the teacher-principal evaluation system. She explained the process of goal setting at the teacher level and at the principal level, which made it a lot easier to understand. Both levels have been trained in the process.
Any questions for Jack? Okay, we can, as we just said, there are no December committee meetings. Just the facility meeting that Aaron mentioned that is next week. So the report of the school board chair. Last time we talked a little bit about budget committee, and I have had a couple of people that have volunteered to be part of that. From Mechanic Falls, I'll be on that, and Aaron's volunteered to be on that. From Poland, Norm's volunteered to be on that, and Mariella will, unless somebody else would like to step up and do it in her place. But thank you, Mariella.
Nobody's looking
Welcome to
at
the
us.
team.
Everybody's
Welcome to
looking
the
down. And in mine, Tina will, but again.
I'd love company.
Yes, it would be nice if there was another person from Minot, just because there are 2 from Mechanic Falls on that and 2 from Poland. So if somebody from Minot, I know Diana said she would, except that she can't do Thursdays. So if somebody from Minot decides, let me know. And as far as community members in Minot, William Perry will be part of that, and also Bernice Frazier again. And in Poland, Mr. Furlan, who's served on it before, will be. Did you hear from Mechanic Falls?
Yes. So right now we have Kathy Fifield and Steve Bolduc. And what Mechanic Falls said is that they had asked Kathy Griffiths, and she was a possible.
Yep.
And my only question I think we may want to discuss is how many community members should we have? Because we certainly need representation from the community, but we should not have more community members than board members, because it's your budget, and you should have a majority of the decision-making of this committee. So right now, I'm wondering if we need to say, one or possibly two, or do we want to, so right now you only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 board members, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 community members who have volunteered. And
I don't think
of course
they,
you would
I don't
have
think they
Stacy.
want 3 from each town.
Right.
I mean, I think the way Minot was doing was they were having somebody that represented their selectmen, and then
Yes.
somebody that represented their community.
So the question would be, what are we looking for?
Right.
Somebody who represents the community or someone who represents the selectmen? Or do we want one of each? But again, if you even do 2 from each town, there's proportionally a lot more representation from, a Minot than from Poland with 2 people.
My 2
And-
cents is, the public and 3 people total from each town.
That's what I would vote for, too.
1 from each town, is that what we'd like?
And I'm perfectly comfortable saying, letting them know that we're looking for 1 from the community. And of course, Corrine Lowe, is Corrine's last name Lowe? Corrine,
The new town manager.
the new town manager of
Right.
Mechanic Falls, is going to come to that first full day so she can get just as an observer, to see how our process works and to understand our budget better. And so we can certainly encourage the town selectmen to come as observers and provide, they can certainly share feedback with me or any of the board members along the way. So I think that probably makes sense. And that was my thought, is we certainly want representation from each town. You just don't want to take away any of the power of the board to make decisions about the budget, because it's your budget.
We in agreement then, 1 from each of the 3 towns, okay? Good. And then student involvement was on here. Remember, it was our goal to try to involve students, and in terms of giving students more information about what we do and getting some feedback from them. And it was part of our strategic plan goal, but also specifically part of our board goals this year. So I have scheduled a meeting with our student representatives and Carrie and Mariella and Tina, and we're going to meet before our next board meeting to start to work on that and come up with some plan of action to start addressing that goal. So I just wanted to give you that update. And the last thing was that I did submit a letter in the adult community mailing on behalf of the board. So I just wanted you to know that. And we'll move on to report of the superintendent.
So I have just a few items here. Webpage, as you know, we've been focusing on our webpage and trying to make it current and a little bit more maybe interactive. And I have hired Ben Poulin, I think it is Ben Poulin, at the high school. He is going to take over the webmaster position, and he's going to do an overhaul of the web page for us. He's got some great ideas. He's met with me. He was excited about kind of doing some different things, and I did talk to him about having some interactive type sections where your agenda can be posted, and that people could respond to me, where we could have policies posted, and they just have to click on a link to make comments to me. He said it would all could come, the feedback can all come to the board, can be shared easily. So be a few more opportunities or ways that community members can interact with us and give us feedback on different things that are coming before the board.
So when you say Ben pulling from the high school, what's his capacity right now?
Right now, he is he teaches the webpage design and the technology classes at the high school, and he's a full-time teacher here, and that's his role. So he's excited about that, and he even said he anticipates an opportunity maybe to get feedback and ideas from students, a real-life application. So kind of is a win-win in that situation where we can bring kind of some insight from students as well as from him. The adult ed newsletter, as Mary said, has been completed. The final copy went to press today, and we had a lot of people contributing to that. Melanie spent hours doing the formatting and getting all the articles in, and so big kudos to Melanie. We had a bunch of teachers also participate. Michelle Smith, science teacher at the high school, wrote an update about the new science curriculum. And Peter Webster, our new Spanish teacher, wrote an article about the Spanish program at the middle school. We had Kayla Marston, our new guidance counselor, write about the work that she's doing. We really tried to target all of those budget decisions that you made so people could see how now they are looking, now that they're in place in the schools. We had Jenny Rose is my editor-in-chief, and she is always my final reader because she, no matter how closely it's been read by a gazillion people, she finds mistakes, and she makes sure she rubs in the mistakes that she finds, and it's all great fun. So I'm always thankful for her, and of course Lauren does a read-through for us. So we had a lot of people participate. All our administrators did some articles. Amy Hedeker did one about math at the middle school. So it's just really nice to see everybody contributing and then to see the final product with a lot of staff input and work on that newsletter. So thank you to Melanie and all the others who contributed. And that will go into the homes the first week in January.
Can we put like little blips maybe on like the Facebook page or Twitter page to be looking for that?
That's a great idea.
Because
Beautiful.
And to say it's in the adult ed flyer or something,
Yes.
I think some people who have no interest in adult ed might just chuck them.
Yes.
But if we could put it out there that this is coming, then they can be prepared to look for it.
Yeah, and we're getting more and more followers on Facebook and also on Twitter, which is exciting. We have 400 or 500, somewhere between 400 and 500 followers on Facebook, and our reach is often 2,000 people in a week. So that's really exciting. And Twitter, I think we're somewhere 170 or 180 followers. So we're certainly able to get messages out easier with those numbers growing. So that's great. Good feedback for us. Melanie and I facilitated a portion of the Western Maine Superintendents Association meeting on Monday of last week, and what they've done is ask different districts to host a part of a meeting each month, and what we chose was community engagement, community forums, and our goal was to spend some time with other superintendents and find out what they were doing for community outreach, what topics they were covering and when they had forums, what they found was the most successful times and dates and ways to get people to participate. And so that was good. We've got quite a bit of information, and I will certainly be sharing with the Education Committee a little bit of the details, but I would say pretty much everyone struggles in the same way we do with, they have forums, but they don't have a lot of participation. And over and over again, what we heard was when they do get good participation, children are involved. So having high school kids or students sharing out how the grade book is working or how standards and proficiency-based education works for them, having students do, like if you're having a concert, having a short presentation right before the concert, keeping it to 15 minutes, but getting some news out. So, and again, they said sometimes when you feed people that helps as well. But but they did, they talked about getting kids involved or having some sort of a draw that with the kids was a big thing. But so we enjoyed doing that, and again, that was always good to have opportunities for our RSU staff to be presenting, so we were happy to have that opportunity. John and I went to negotiations workshop on Friday, and so we're getting all prepped for our next round of negotiations, which won't happen until early next year, but that will come quickly, and Drummond and Whitson only does a training once every December, so we figured this would be a good starting point for us to have a refresher. And so it's good to have John join me in that. The only other thing that I had added was also Sean presented or facilitated a session at Maine Principals Association Conference this year titled Thorny Issues, and he facilitated a similar type of format as Melanie and I at ours. And so again, I think it's always good for RSU 16 to have people facilitating their state level conferences, because it gets some of the work we're doing out and gives us a chance to show our leadership. So glad to have Sean out there, putting himself out there with his colleagues at the Maine Principals Association Conference. And that's it.
Do some resignations?
Yes. So for staff, well, first we have staff new hires. We have Penny Bergeron, who we've hired as secretary at PCS. We have Nicholas Strout, who's a bus monitor. We have William Bickford, 7th grade basketball coach. Sarah Falkingham, winter cheering coach, and Greg Valancourt, a JV ice hockey coach. So good to have our new hires on board. We have 3 resignations. The first one is Christine Frazier, teacher at Elm Street School. To make sure that none of you are panicked about that, this is for the end of the year, but she's got her resignation in now because they have to do that for as part of their contract.
And I guess I would just say there that I worked with Chris for a lot of years. She's an outstanding teacher, and she will certainly be missed.
And she's still going full force with all of her commitment to our students and our staff. She's on the leadership team, and is really committed even though it's her final year. So it is nice to see a teacher working hard right up until the end of their career. We have Leslie Hayes, food service specialist, has resigned, and also Randy Plummer, our food service manager for Poland Regional High School. So they will both be missed, or all 3 will be missed as dedicated staff members. The last thing we had here is the Telescope has Poland students seeing stars. That was in the newspaper. That was, we got that telescope from a grant from the Tri-Town Education Fund. And so seeing our students being able to have new opportunities and getting some outside funding for special programs is always great. That's it.
Okay, so we can close our regular session. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Julie, and seconded by Steve.
Sign
Take
your
a
health
5-minute break.
policies.
Oh.
You need these to go around.
Another one. I got you.
Yeah, you guys are good.